Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for session 2. I'd like to introduce again Brent Watson. He'll be delivering situational awareness session 3. And just for everybody at home, this classroom is COVID compliant. Everybody's gone through the proper screening protocols. And anyhow, moving forward, I hope you enjoy session 3 and you enjoyed session 2. And we'll pass it off to Chief Watson. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Okay, so in session 3 here, we're going to build on what we just talked about in session 2. Session 2, you'll recall, was primarily about safety and situational awareness. So this next section kind of takes situational awareness to the next level, and it talks about what we call entrapment avoidance. Entrapment being, of course, being caught in a situation where you're exposed to fire when you didn't mean to be. You're trapped by the fire. So obviously, all the tragedy fires were the result of entrapments. And we're going to be covering things like trigger points, maintaining your situational awareness, escape zones. We're going to revisit laces. I know all of you have been well-trained in laces. We'll talk about that. And I really want to emphasize, we got a lot of material that we're covering today. A lot of it is just to kind of give you that baseline information and setting you up for success on day 2. So even though this may seem like a standalone course, there's a ton of info being thrown at you. We're going to revisit almost all of it, especially the tactics, all the laces stuff on day 2 in the field. And that really is the spirit and the intent of the course. Okay, so I had a question from Chief Adams at the break about some of the resources that we examine, case studies of tragedy fires, books, videos, etc. This is a book that's currently in the back of my toilet, and it's pretty good. It's about the South Canyon fire from 1994. 14 firefighters were killed there, and I talked about it a little bit earlier about a breakdown in comms. There had been the American red flag issued, cold front passed through. Basically, I think they had found 8 of the 10 standing orders had been somehow violated, 12 of the 18 watchouts, and it resulted in the tragic loss of 14 firefighters. Again, they were very much in a wildfire fighting context, but they're part of an overall complex that was there to protect an adjacent community. So we'll get into that in just a little bit later, but this book, I think I picked it up at like Chapters. It was like 15, 20 bucks, something like that. Shared it. It was version 2 of my first one disappeared. Somebody in the fire department never came back like they tend to, but it makes very engaging reading. Not only is it a good story, but there's a lot in there in terms of lessons learned, and it's just something that, you know, I count that as part of my arsenal of knowledge. So speaking of entrapments and their avoidance, we're going to start off with a really quick video here, and I'll just tell you a little bit of background about it. It's from the 2007 Santiago fire, which is just, I think it's like LA County area. It happened at 15:30. So again, I keep saying, notice these times, right? 15:30, 16:20, 1700. There's a reason why these things happen at these times that we're going to look at. Happens at 15:30, 87 degrees outside, relative humidity of 5%. I think they're LA County, I'm not sure. They're a big municipality, firefighters. They're out doing bump and run tactics, which we'll cover in day 2. We'll cover a little bit today, but we'll actually do it in the field. They're doing bump and run, strike team of engines, putting out spot fires along the road to keep the road open. Okay, so they basically come across a spot, and I'll show you what happens.
Engine 34, watch, you've got another spot down below you. Move your folks down into the burn further. 34, continue forward more, come forward more, and then hit that from the front here with your deck gun. Engine 34, engine 22, you've got a spot fire beneath the hose line. Get into the black. We're in the black. We're going to hit it. Hit it right. Engine 53, priority traffic. Go. Can you get a helicopter over here? You guys are not. Negative. We do not have air support available. 22 or 34, what is your current situation? It's getting small up here. We're getting ready to deploy.
Brent Street from Division Yankee. We're having a crew deploy on the ridge line on the north side of Santiago at this time. We can use air support over here ASAP.
I'll talk to him. I don't think you're going to get air support. I'm bringing you a strike team of engines, but I'll go to ops and Afghan.
We just had a crew have a shelter deployment A shelter deployment? The shelter deployment on the ridge line.
Copy that. Engine 22, what is your status, and do you have accountability for all crew members?
We've deployed shelter. Everyone's accounted for. Everyone in shelter.
10-4, I want periodic updates with every minute about accountability and condition of the crew. The fire has died down. We have a hand crew making this cutting of the line up to you. We've got another hose leg trying to make its way up to you. 22, here comes your drop.
22, I'm out of my shelter looking around. Everyone's sheltered in place. Everyone's accounted for. We're on the block. And that drop helped a lot.
22, I'm assuming that everything is okay for you guys to be out of your shelter.
Hose line's up there. Everybody's out of the shelter. Everyone's accounted for. No injuries.
Okay, comments, observations on that video. And again, we don't play it to like kind of demonstrate a shelter deployment. We don't obviously use shelters. But what that video is about is just, it's a municipal engine company doing bump and run, actually in a spot fire. They got pre-racked 250 feet, an inch and a half on the back of their rigs, like we're gonna show you how to do on day 2. The spot fire 60 feet, so it would be within their pre-connects, 60 feet up a hill. They get up there, and what they don't explain is that they actually burst the line. They replace the line. While they're doing that, a spot fire starts below them. Okay, they replace the line in the meantime, then that fire burns through their line, hence the entrapment. So we went over the 10 and 18s earlier on. Just quickly, I want to keep it going pretty fast here, but any thoughts in terms of those 10 standard firefighting orders? I mean, what went wrong there? Can you see anything that you would want to be conscious of? Sorry, Sarah. You said,
weather conditions.
Okay, weather conditions. Yeah, absolutely. There was obviously some wind came up. Anything else?
Light flashy fuels.
Yeah, light flashy fuels. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a characteristic in tragedy fires. Anything else? Steep slope, yeah, sure. Some topographical stuff there. How about unburned fuel between you and the fire? Okay. Yep. Okay, Michelle, I heard escape routes. Yeah, what about them there?
Their escape route was becoming compromised, so at that point you should be pulling out or trying to get to a new escape route.
Yeah.
But that was also compromised.
Yeah, but look how fast that happened. I mean, it's not a real-time, time-lapse kind of thing, but I mean, like, hey, if somebody orders you to catch a spot fire on the side of the road using your rack line, like, you think it's gonna end like what are the chances you're thinking even that way? You know, like, so again, be aware, it can happen very fast to firefighters who are very well experienced doing this kind of thing, as all those firefighters are, so, yeah. Okay, so entrapments then, so like basically accidents of being trapped by fire are the net result of decision errors. So where do entrapments mostly occur, do you think? We've kind of talked a little bit about it, but any ideas where they most likely occur? And again, thinking about as structural firefighters, where do you think you might encounter an entrapment? Any thoughts? One way in, one way out? Yeah. Switchbacks, how do switchbacks affect, Lou? Yep. So like convective heat, runs uphill, all that kind of thing? Yeah. Okay, how about, who do you think is most frequently involved in these sorts of entrapments? Any ideas? This is a graph put out in the States, right here. Okay, single resource bosses. What course are we doing? Exactly. Task force leaders also, firefighters. So just further to this whole entrapment thing, and again, this is like you can look at these through the case studies and the histories in the books. Look at the times of them. 1448, 1455, 1500, 1530, 1600, 1625, 1642. What's the commonality there in time? What's going on, do you think, at that time of day? Okay. Wind shifts. Anything else? Yeah. Pete,
Hottest part of the day.
hottest part of the day? Rob? Crossover? Yep. Peak burn period. Okay, so dry fuel. So is it fair to say it's the peak burn period, at least for our area of the world? Those times is when it's occurring? Okay, and again, that to me kind of says a lot, that over half of these entrapments, based on primarily American studies, are occurring at the engine boss level. So just a quick, we'll walk through this. What skills do we use to avoid entrapment then? Okay, we talked about situational awareness, anticipating that fire behavior. Where are you going to get that anticipated fire behavior from? Advisories, FBAN, briefings. Okay, we really want to emphasize briefings because you'll see in day 2, that's a big part of what we do, is getting a good, effective briefing and taking that information from the briefing and turning that into a tactical plan. Okay, so also skills to avoid entrapment, selecting effective strategies and tactics. We talked about that, and we'll get more into that a little bit later today. Making decisions about when to engage the fire. So again, your risk management using the IRPG, your laces, and recognizing, of course, good safety zones and escape routes. So very much so, laces there. So what about laces? Okay, it's well covered in other courses, S100. Is laces all you need to know? Do you think? No, it's your minimum standard, right? Your absolute minimum safety level is laces. How does it relate to the 10 firefighting orders? Again, we covered it. Basically, they're all in there, right? All the aspects of laces are encountered in there. That's why these 10 are so critical. And you'll see on the bottom there, laces is the minimum level of hazard control that must be in place before making a decision to engage a fire. So no firefighting without laces in place. Again, we've all covered this well. So what about laces in the interface intermix as opposed to purely wildland? Basically, there are some differences between a strictly wildland context and an interface context. For example, you may have to be your own lookout, especially as an engine boss. Say you're at the end of a subdivision, your task force leader's down like 2 blocks over. Who's your lookout? I mean, you may have a lookout posted. We may have someone from the task force, an engine assigned with that, but does that alleviate you of your need to be a lookout as well for your crew working on your section of the subdivision? Absolutely not. Okay, what's the A in laces? Anybody remember? The Americans never used to use it. They started using it, and I think they called it awareness, and we call it anchor. Yeah. What about anchors? What are anchor points in the interface? Yeah, roads? Yeah, absolutely. Anything else? Why do we even need an anchor point? Okay, we don't want the fire to flank us, right? You got to have it anchored. And with the old rule of thumb from our friend Rod Collins back in Nevada, ridges, rivers, and roads. He always would say that, ridges, rivers, and roads. So in an interface environment, roads are a great one. You could have large, like, non-vegetated areas, parking lots, whatever it may be. You want to anchor into that to meet your A. Communications. We saw on those videos some pretty good examples of good comms and maybe not so good comms. Again, the chatter, you want to keep your communications, they have to be effective. You have to be in communication. You all got to be working on the same frequency, okay? As an engine boss, you got to communicate information out, so it's not just the actual art of transmitting message, it's actually like taking that information and making sure your crew understands it. Communications can be hampered in the interface, just like they can in the wildland. A lot of, like, I know you guys have very sophisticated repeated sites with, like Chief Watkinson said, I have yet to really figure it out, tried. But obviously we're operating on OFC 1 and 2, okay? Those are repeated channels. I mean, the issue there, if we get behind a hillside, heavy smoke, a depression of topography, we don't have a whole bunch of repeaters picking up our transmissions, right? We can lose comms pretty fast. And, and the whole thing about comms too, and it goes back to our very first session, is making sure you've got batteries, adequate batteries for your radios. Because, I mean, like, if you don't have chargers or you don't have an ability to charge, a lot of engines do have that ability, but you got to think, like, you got to have your comms available and charged up. We heard on that last video in the San Diego burnover, the personal accountability report when they were in the shelters there. That was very good, I thought. They were in good contact, good comms, accountable for all their crew. Less so in the Canyon fire when they actually lost somebody on their engine. So, absolutely critical. Do not commit to stay and protect a structure unless an adequate escape route and safety zone are available. So you'll see when we go through the actual tactics, whether we prep a structure and stay to defend it, or we prep a structure and we go, depends on whether or not we have adequate escape routes and a safety zone in place, okay? And Chad will talk about that a little bit later.